The corporate media has been hammering on stories of rampant runaway inflation in order to, in my opinion, turn popular sentiment against government spending for social programs that actually benefit normal human people. So, one example of that was CNN. So now CNN was put on blast a couple of weeks ago for for a story that they ran. Brianna Kylar presented a family, the Stotlers, that was going through 12 gallons of milk a week. Now, a lot of people looked at that and was like, whoa, really? 12 gallons of milk? That's crazy. And of course, they're like, well, milk used to be $1.99 a gallon. Now it's $2.79, and we go through 12 gallons a week. You know how much that is? It's about $134 a month. That's a lot of milk, and that's pretty expensive. And obviously, yes, $2.79 is more expensive than $1.99. And so, yes, there is inflation, and it does suck. Now, the reason CNN got dunked on as a result of that, it's not because the Stotlers didn't actually face a real issue related to inflation. Yeah, of course they did, and that sucks. But it's because the Stotler family was anything but the typical family, not exactly the average people here, okay? They actually have about 10 children. That's not the average family size in America. The average family actually is about 2 to 3 kids, and the median income is about $68,000 a year. And by the way, half of all American workers actually make less than $35,000 a year. That's according to 2019 numbers. And so, not exactly average when you're talking about, 12 gallons of milk, 10 kids. Most people can't afford 1 kid or 2, much less 2, especially in this country where we don't have childcare, where we don't have paid leave, maternity leave, etc. Get back in the mines and get back to work. Oh, you push a baby out? Get back to the office. Get back in the line. So now, as I said, the Stotlers do not represent the average American family, but because the inflation hits them especially hard as a result of the size of their family. And so because of that, the whole segment kind of came off as like a fear-mongering using a bit of an extreme example, an absurd example. And the reason, of course, that it pissed off a lot of people is because it was pushing a narrative. That narrative is inflation, scary, let's not do any social spending, let's listen to people like Joe Manchin. Now, Marketwatch did the same thing just recently. In a tweet about inflation, they said that the average Americans, that average people, are actually routinely paying, as a result of inflation, $90 for a bottle of wine. In an article earlier this month, Marketwatch reported that inflation is the highest it's been in the United States in almost 31 years. Of course, that's a fact, and I'm not, discounting that at all. And it cited elevating price tags on everything from concert tickets to wine to gasoline. Do they know how normal people live, what they actually spend money on? I mean, gasoline, of course, that's a given. But like $90 wine. Now, the tweet sharing the article claimed that average Americans are paying as much as $100 to $200 for a single concert ticket, $90 for a bottle of wine, and $5 a gallon for gas. Okay, that's factually incorrect. The average price per gallon for a gallon of gas across the country is $3.41. Now, is it more expensive in places, the bigger cities like California, for example, on the West Coast? Absolutely. But everywhere else, again, it averaged, somewhere around over $3, $3.30, $3.41, $3.50, and in some places it's higher, some places lower. Okay, that sucks. And by the way, if we only had some sort of public transportation system that would take cars off the road and lessen our dependence on fossil fuels, foreign sources of oil controlled by cartels like OPEC Plus, for example, and paid for, eliminating, and actually eliminated the $20 billion a year in subsidies we give to oil and gas companies while we work on switching to all renewable energy sources. If only we had something. If only we had something. Oh well, I guess we don't. I guess we just can't do that. That costs too much money. But seriously, though, the reason that we're paying more in gas prices, and again, it is higher in California, almost 450 in certain places, OPEC plus the cartel, literal cartel, raised the prices of oil and by, of course, reducing demand, or I'm sorry, reducing production, reducing the supply at a time of increased demand. And they did so in order to make up lost profit during the pandemic. As a result, we pay more at the pump. That hurts regular working people most of all. And so that's the issue. Now, if you're talking about concert tickets, that's something a little bit different. For me personally, again, we're in the pandemic, okay? We're still in the pandemic. Why are we doing concerts? Maybe it's just me and the fact that I'm generally not a people person. Big surprise, right? I don't like being around big crowds of people. And so the idea of standing shoulder to shoulder in a crowd in the middle of loud music, that sounds even worse now than it did before. So, and look, I'm vaccinated, sure. That doesn't mean I'm 100% immune from COVID or 100% immune from giving it to someone else, even if I'm asymptomatic. Nonetheless, that is a concern, right? If you want to go to a concert, though, it's kind of hard to still find a cheap ticket. And average people, to be fair, I think some average people do like to hit up a concert every once in a while, and that's fine. But the idea that there's anything average about spending $90 on a bottle of wine, no way. That's too far. Who pays $90 for a bottle of wine? What average American will do that? None that I know. None that I know. And why would you? Why would an average person do that? Again, if you want to go for an inexpensive option, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from double fisting Boone's Farm, a couple of bottles for less than $10. Or like get yourself a, I don't know, $25 box of wine, and you can get all the Karens on your block drunk. Have a big old block party with that. $90 though, $90. And by the way, if you're looking on the cheap, why not get, spend $16 for a case of natural ice? That's not a 12-pack. That's a 30-pack for $16. There are so many ways to drink. So many cheaper ways. And it doesn't, it can be wine as well. Nobody's paying $90 for wine. Unless you are, again, let me just go back and rephrase it. No regular people are paying $90 for wine. That's ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Again, if natty ice, if you want to get drunk, that's the way to go, because if you can get past the horrible taste and the feeling of self-loathing after drinking that, you can have a good time on the cheap, like a regular person. But understand that, like, the backlash on this Marketwatch tweet was swift. They actually deleted the original tweet, as a lot of people accused them of inflation fear-mongering, which again would be absolutely correct. In fact, one person tweeted, Marketwatch is panicking folks about saying average Americans are paying as much as $90 for a bottle of wine and $5 a gallon for gas. Another person says, stop fear-mongering. The average cost of gas before COVID was pretty close to what it is now. You can get a bottle of wine for under $4 at Aldi. Gas was cheap during COVID because no one was going anywhere. Another person says, feeling very average American tonight. About to purchase my daily $90 bottle of wine and down my 12 gallons of milk. Please don't do that. You will die. All right. Another person says, it's just an average bottle of wine, Michael. How much could it cost? $90? Another person adds, Marketwatch thinks average Americans paying $90 for a bottle of wine. They also think that the price of beluga caviar may be getting slightly out of reach for the working class. Huge disconnect. Love it. But these are fun. But there's something a little bit more going on here. this is a tactic that conservatives are using to stop social spending. And you see, it doesn't matter what party they're in. Conservatives going to conservative. For example, Joe Manchin. He's been talking about inflation the whole time. Oh, I can't support Build Back Better because we got inflation. I can't support something that would literally cap the cost of insulin to $35 a month. Oh, can't do that. No. Can't do something that's, allows older people, senior citizens, to be able to get hearing aids, hearing care at a lower cost. And again, there's a whole bunch of great stuff in Build Back Better before Joe Manchin took a razor to it. Not just a razor, sorry, razors for fine cuts. No, he took a hatchet, an absolute literal hatchet job on it, and still is saying, I just, inflation, what are you going to do? We can't do more social spending. No, not at all. And that's the situation. So let me add one more tweet here. One person says average Americans are not paying $100 concert tickets or $90 bottles of wine. They pay soaring prescription drug prices, unaffordable child care, and lack of paid leave. And the reason they're paying $5 a gallon of gas is big oil and gas are jacking up the prices. You know that you and I, as taxpayers, we ended up footing the bill for trillions of dollars in handouts to big corporations. Like the yummy in their tummy bipartisan infrastructure bill. You know what that was filled with? Public-private partnerships, government contracts, privatization of public assets, along with many, many subsidies. Now the Democrats passed that and progressives lost whatever little leverage they might have had. People like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, Nancy Pelosi, and other corporate Democrats have actually no reason to support a robust version of Build Back Better. If it'll pass at all, well, you could say, what, it just passed the House last week. Yeah, there was a version that passed the House, but they don't mention that the Senate is where you're going to find the real problem. You have Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to get passed. And Joe Manchin did not promise to vote for this. And so what's going to happen? Well, probably nothing. Again, this isn't even one of his priorities anymore. His priority is defense spending, the NDAA, passing that. So he's not gonna be at all interested in doing anything with Build Back Better, which is going to be disastrous for the midterms. So great. Now, the reason that I don't mention Republicans, by the way, on this is because Republicans would have never supported Build Back Better in the first place. They love what Manchin and Sinema have done to block social spending. And, that social spending, guys, it would have helped you. And they're using right-wing narratives. The Democrats are. That's all this is. I'm glad to see that people are not buying it, regular people, because the provisions in this bill are, as spelled out, individually poll incredibly well. So the American people aren't buying it. Unfortunately, it's electorally the Democrats who will pay the price for this failure. And of course, to them, it's not a failure. It's exactly what the plan was. But the American people will again lose out. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.